got big dreams, I'ma do big things. Yeah, you see me on the big screen looking so clean. I don't move slow, I move fast right past.
Yo, what's going on guys, SamXPlays here, and today I'm going to be going over my ultimate bunny build. We just got some new skill power mods, so I have been in the research lab testing out all the numbers, seeing what's good, what's not good. Don't mind the secret garden. I'm also leveling my ultimate Freyna, which if you have been watching me, she is finally done cooking. She just finished crafting this morning, so I will be putting guides on her out after I play around with her a little bit, but she is insane. I had no catalyst on and she was just clearing 400% dungeons. I literally clicked one button, everything exploded. Holy shit. That character is wild. But we're not here to talk about ultimate Freyna, we're here to talk about ultimate bunny and or bunny. So the build I wanted to go over today is going to be, first we're going to go over the lightning emission build, which you're not going to be using high voltage in this build. Personally, I like doing the 400% dungeons without high voltage because I feel like there's just way too many enemies. High voltage only takes a few enemies at a time. I feel like lightning emission is just way more efficient. So I'll go ahead and go over my mods here. Now I know you're probably looking at it and thinking I'm doing things a little bit differently than everybody else, but there is a reason for that. So after testing my damage numbers, I wanted to come up with a build that was giving me the most amount of damage, where I could be running those 400% dungeons. I kill everything in 1 to 2 ticks. And if there's one thing you notice here, we are not going to be running the focus on electric, focus on singular. We're actually going to be using the singular specialist. The reason for this is because we're just trying to get as much damage output as possible. So if we look at this one, it's 68.2%, whereas this one is 76.1%. So we are getting that damage increase from using the blue mod. We do not need the purple mods in this build because we are already getting the cooldown from MP conversion. However, if you were trying to do this build with the purple mods, they give you 12% CDR. Lightning emission is a lot longer of a cooldown than high voltage, so that would not give you enough CDR to use lightning emission and give you 100% uptime. So that is why we have MP conversion in here. A big one you're also probably looking at is Electric Master. So this one is actually better than Electric Specialist. So if I go here, most people are using the focus on electric, and or if you're trying to really push your build for a lot of damage, you're using Electric Specialist because the blue mods again are more damage than the purple mods, just without the cooldown reduction. However, Electric Master is going to outperform these two mods in terms of raw damage, which I'll go ahead and show you guys right now, just so you know I'm not full of shit, but I did test all these. So for the testing, I basically just spawned the first guy right here. I spawned a Legion of Immortality, so if the damage seems a little bit lower than usual, usually when people are showing off stuff with Bunny, they'll summon an Order of Truth just because they're weak to lightning or whatnot. But I mean, it doesn't really matter. The same thing's going to apply whether you have a reactor equipped. If I had Thunder Cage equipped, I'd get higher damage numbers, but I mean the results are the same. But assuming you're leveling other weapons with weapon XP proficiency and stuff like that, I'm just not going to go match the reactor to the Thunder Cage right now, and we're just going to use this guy as a example. So first, let's look at Electric Master's damage. So if we go and tick him,
No chance.
we're doing 117,816, right? And then our dot is ticking for 32,123. So this is going to be at max lightning, whatever. So if I come over here and I switch this out, so most people are using this, right? But I'm just going to use the blue mod as an example just because it's better, and I'll show you guys the difference in damage. So let's slot out Electric Master for Electric Specialist, and now let's look at our damage.
No chance.
So we're doing 108,928, and then we're ticking for 29,699. So yeah, Electric Master is just going to outperform Electric Specialist. especially if you are using those purple mods, it's going to decrease your damage even more. I'm just using the blue mods just to kind of like drive home how good Electric Master is, because obviously if you throw on the purple mods, you're not doing as much damage as you would be with the blue mods. I will go ahead and put the numbers from this test up on the screen that I just wrote down in a notepad, comparing like if I had like a Slayer set on, if I had like a no bonus set on, etc., what the difference is. One thing I found is if you do have a Slayer set on, the difference in damage becomes a lot more like close. So with like Electric Master, Electric Specialist with like no bonus set on, as we said, we're doing 117,816, and then with Electric Specialist we're doing 108,928. So that's around like a 10k damage difference, and then the dot is ticking for about 3k more, so it's just going to outperform it. It does get a little bit closer when you have Slayer on. It goes from 137,981, so we are getting that damage increase from the Slayer set, right? But then when we have Electric Specialist on, it is 135,228. So that's only about a 3k difference, right? So when you do have the Slayer set on, it is going to make these two mods a lot more like close. But if you don't have the Slayer set on, it's a pretty significant damage increase, especially when you account for, like, you know, if you're doing the grapple trick and you're just like ticking really fast like that, that damage can add up pretty quick, especially in those 400% dungeons. So that is why I am using Electric Master. I just found that it's just more damage, like straight up. And the same thing would apply just in case, so I can show you guys. So like, this doesn't really matter, it's just gonna make the damage numbers look bigger, but I'll go ahead and match the weapon and then show you as well that it's the same thing. Like, so we'll do it with Electric Master first. We're doing 188,507. And we're ticking for about 51.4k. And then we'll throw in the blue mod. And as you can see, we're doing less damage. 174k and then 47.5k. So that's why I'm running this. But if you're interested, as I said, I'll put the numbers from like all the various testing. I just basically tested each mod, wrote down the damage number of each tick, and all that good stuff. Now, one thing you'll notice in here is this build is not using maximize conservation, so you are not going to be able to infinitely run. However, again, in those 400% dungeons, it's so like congested that just having MP collector on, when you're moving from room to room, you're going to be topped off on mana, right? Like, you're never going to run out of mana. The only time you might run out is when you're like, there's like if there's like dry periods, right? Where you're like running from room to room, and then there's like 10-15 seconds where you're sprinting and there's like no enemy showing up, right? But for the majority of the time, like 90% of the dungeon, you're not going to be running out of mana because they just have so many mobs in there, and MP collector is going to put in a lot of work. And again, if I were to throw a maximized conservation in here, we would lose the skill cooldown. And even if I threw in those two purple mods giving me like 12% cooldown reduction, it still would not be enough to get me 100% uptime on my lightning emission. So let's go ahead and throw the purple mods on. So we threw the purple mods in, and then we threw maximized conservation in. So if you can see here, it's still 26.3 seconds. That's not enough. Like, you're gonna have a long waiting period of 6.3 seconds until your skill comes back up, which, like, no, right? Like, there's no way. So the 12% cooldown reduction, like, doesn't matter. So that's why I'm using the blue version of this. Anyways, you guys get the idea. I could talk about this all day, but basically this is the best build if you're just trying to nuke everything in those 400% dungeons and you're not wanting to run high voltage with this. High voltage does have a shorter cooldown, which I will go over here. We'll talk about that in a second. But as far as for lightning emission, like without the Transcendent mods on. What you would want is something like this, which is like skill cost on your reactor, so we can kind of offset that mana usage. And then you would want MP recovery in combat. This will help you run a little bit longer, so that way you're not running out of mana as quickly. But the main thing being the skill cost on the reactor. You can also go for skill range, however, it does cap you if you have range on your reactor. So like, you know, right now I'm range capped with this reactor on. But if you're just like weapon proficiency farming and you're just like constantly switching your weapons, just try and get skill cost on like a reactor and you should be good. This build is not using crit, so you don't need to go for like, you know, crit rate, crit damage, anything like that. You're just trying to offset the inconvenience of not having the maximized conservation on. So that's why you are prioritizing those. All right, next up, let's look at the high voltage build. So if you are wanting to use this build with high voltage, it absolutely is doable. However, a couple things do change. So if I notice here, if I scroll over my lightning emission, we are 0.7 seconds away from having a 100% uptime on our 3 ability. So with this build, you would want to have a skill cooldown reactor. That way you're getting 100% uptime. Granted, 0.7 seconds is like not a lot, right? But you know, if you didn't want to overcap on range, then you could find like a reactor with skill cooldown skill cost, and that would be like ideal, right? This one has a little bit more quality of life because we just slotted out MP conversion for maximized conservation. So this is going to allow you to run a lot longer. However, even with this build with high voltage, Electric Master does still beat out Electric Specialist and focus on electric. Again, it's just doing more damage. So if I look here, this is with Electric Master on, so we're doing 240.8k, and then we're ticking for about 54k. And then if I throw on Electric Specialist, which is again the better version of focus on electric, see, we're doing less damage, so it's going to tick for 223k around, and then around 50k, right? So we're losing damage. Now, if you did not want to get the extra damage from Electric Master and you don't have a skill cooldown reactor, you could just throw on like focus on electric, right? Since high voltage does have a shorter cooldown than lightning emission, it would put you over down to 19.3 seconds, which you're good, right? You have 100% uptime now. And then again, you would just look for like skill cost on your reactor. However, I run mine with Electric Master just because I'm greedy. I want as much damage as possible. And then I'll just throw on like a cooldown reactor if I don't want to have that 0.7 second downtime, right? And to be honest, this doesn't really matter. Like, you might think that 0.7 seconds, like right when your last tick goes off, you basically can cast it again. You're not really gonna have downtime with this build. Like, I never have downtime with this build. Like, as soon as my last tick goes off, my 3 is up already anyways. So I'm really not missing. Like, you don't have to get this down to 20 seconds. I personally don't worry about it. I'd rather have more damage, but you guys can test it out for yourself if you want. But if you want to know what it looks like here, like I promise you, you're not even gonna notice. All right, so my cooldown's about to end, right? Look, when my last tick goes off, there's no downtime. So there's really no need for me to put the cooldown reduction in here because it's basically at 100% uptime anyway. Let's go back to the lightning emission build for a moment. So one thing I also tested is I took off spear and shield and I threw in this mod, electronic Synctium. I don't know if I'm saying that wrong, but basically what I found that is if you are not wearing the Slayer set, Spear and Shield is better, where if you are wearing the Slayer set, this mod is actually more damage. Now, the amount of damage increase is extremely low. We're talking by hundreds. So this doesn't really like matter, but if you wanted to know like which one's doing more damage, it would be this one if you had the Slayer set equipped. But it's only by like literally a few hundred, and you're dropping like 90% defense, but I did test these two, which I'll put on the screen here. It really doesn't matter. It's not a big enough difference. I just felt like mentioning it just in case anyone was curious, but yeah. Other than that though, I mean, this build should get you through those 400% dungeons like no problem. You're just basically upping your damage as high as possible. Now, I did try to find a way to take something out that I could throw in the electric Synctium in with, but you know, it's just not, there was nothing that was worth dropping to give me like that extra damage increase, so I just decided to keep the build as is. Like the only thing I could really take out is like MP collector, which it's like too valuable since this build doesn't have like a lot of uptime on our speed of light ability. So yeah, but if you were trying to like min-max your damage, you know, you could technically do it, but I wouldn't recommend it. You know, I don't think it's worth it. But basically the general idea is you're just stacking as much skill power as possible with this build, and you're just gonna nuke everything. Like if you try out this build and go into a 400% dungeon, everything's gonna die within 1 to 2 ticks, except like, you know, maybe the elites or something. But I have noticed a difference from when I am wearing like, you know, 2 purple mods comparatively to just like a blue singular specialist and electric master versus the like other build, right, with the 2 purple mods. So as far as your external components, as I showed you, there's going to be like some differences in damage from when you're having like the Slayer set on versus when you don't have it on, in terms of electric master versus electric specialist. Like it gets a lot lower, right? But if you don't have the Slayer set on, I'd say the damage increase is significant enough. Another thing with the Slayer set is most of the stats on it are shield, right? So you are a lot less tanky when you do have that set on, just because once your shield gets popped, it takes a while to regen. So if you are struggling with like the 400% invasions with the Slayer set on, you should probably just like drop a little bit of damage and then throw on like, you know, double max HP roll mods and stuff like that. You can also throw on a mod that has like, a component rather, that has like MP recovery out of combat, MP recovery in combat. That's going to help you a lot. Ideally, you would want like a legendary max MP here, but it's not like crucial. It's just, you know, if you're trying to min-max. And then you can just kind of like flex whatever on these. I mean, I have a defense on here just because, but you could throw on like whatever you want, another max HP component. You know, this one has max HP, max shield, whatever. It really doesn't matter. You just want to basically be able to survive and not just get like 2-tapped with those bosses, right? Because those bosses can hurt. And a lot of the times when I have the Slayer set on and I'm farming, I feel like a wet noodle. So usually I run something like this and I just drop the Slayer damage, even though the Slayer damage does increase your damage by like a shit ton. It just kind of depends what I'm doing, right? If I feel like wearing the Slayer set, I will. If I don't, I don't. But I die a lot easier with that set on for sure. Anyways, guys, that is going to be the video. I just wanted to show you guys my ultimate bunny build and or bunny build. Since this one doesn't require high voltage, you can just build this maybe if you don't have ultimate bunny yet or whatnot. And as I said, my Reina did just finish cooking, so I will make sure to, you know, go in the lab, test some stuff out, and, you know, try to see what I can cook up. But anyways, that's it, guys. I don't want to turn this into like a 45-minute video. I think y'all get the point. I appreciate you. My name's Samix Plays. Y'all have a good one. Y'all take care. Thank you for watching. Click the sub button if you did enjoy the video. I'm dipping out. Peace. Yo.